If you are brushing with the right hand, tomorrow you just try brushing with the left hand. You will not be able to do it. So you bring in technology and try to change a consumer's habit, it is not going to happen. So you have to bring in something which falls in the consumer's habit and makes it much easier in that process. So the good looking products have become extremely important. Of course, quality is extremely important. They really like the product. What is promised is being delivered. So consumers really look at that. आप कुछ और बोलो और कुछ और करो वो नहीं चलेगा. बोलो और वो करो. Don't show the moon and then 2 फुट भी ऊपर नहीं जाए.
So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you, depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome to Towards a Better World, my community on Thinkly, where I, Ayon Banerjee, on a personal capacity, host conversations with some of the most inspirational people from all walks of life. In the preceding 2 seasons of this podcast, we've had celebrated global CEOs of Fortune 100 organizations, child prodigies and potential future Nobel laureates, known faces from Bollywood, and more. The idea being to bring forth non-prescriptive narratives and the right role models for the next generation so as to leave the world a little better each day than how we find it, one conversation at a time. Today's conversation is very special, not just because it's the last episode of 2024 and the first episode of season 3, but also because our guest today is someone from the formative years of my own career, a once colleague turned great friend whose journey I have observed and admired over the past 25 years. And it's not just me, but hundreds of folks from the consumer durables and electrical goods industry in India, all of who look up to him as a role model. They say leadership is not a popularity contest, isn't it? But Jitendra Agrawal surely proves it wrong. He is a leader who is as successful as he is popular. In his stellar career, Jitendra has seen it all and done it all, from marketing to sales to organizational transformation to leading hugely successful P&Ls. There is so much wealth of information available with him that I'm afraid that we won't have enough time. But I promise you that I shall try my best to bring forth the best of learning that we can have from an amazing leader of our times. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let me welcome Jitendra Agrawal to Towards a Better World. Welcome, Jitu.
Hi, Ayan. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Good to have you here and good to see you after a long time, Jitu. Thanks for taking time out.
Thank you for all the kind words. I could hear all the kind words. I think we go a long way back, and the admiration is mutual. The time we spent, we were like, when you joined, you were in sales, and I was doing product marketing, and we had some fantastic, and you were a go-getter that time. So very happy to interact in this module today, and looking forward to the discussion ahead.
Thank you, Jitu. And we should be thanking you. It's wonderful to have you. And we thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, especially on a year-end week to do this. And since I don't want to waste a single moment while you are live with us, Jitu, let me dive straight away into the first question. So like you said, you have a very impressive resume. And that's also unlike, most of the senior management resumes in the industry you belong to. I mean, we have very few folks who started in product management and marketing. Then they moved into sales, and that too both B2B as well as B2C sales, who led national portfolios and eventually who have also led very successful P&Ls in multinational as well as Indian environments. So, but if I ask you in retrospect, 29 years now from your page one, so which one of your hats is the one that's closest to your heart? I mean, which has been your favorite assignment and why so?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it's been a long while. And then if I have to recollect, I started in frontline sales actually. And from frontline sales, I went into product marketing. Then I did regional sales in South and then North. B2C, I did B2C. I started in prescription sales, which is more B2B. And then, I went through the process and then moved into B2C and then did some national roles and then doing more P&L end-to-end roles. If I have to recollect things, all functions and all roles are very important, and you learn in each one of these roles. One of the roles I think I learned the most and which has impacted a lot in my career has been product marketing. I was, as you know, that I was in Philips Lighting at that point of time, and Philips had a professional lighting business. It also had a consumer lighting business. So these are two very different businesses. Both these markets are pretty large markets. So 50-50%. If you see lighting as 100 units, 50 is coming from professional lighting and 50 is coming from consumer lighting. So it's a pretty large business. So I was very fortunate how that I could land up as a product manager. I was like, what, 27, I guess, very young. And I was succeeding somebody who was like 42. And I'm getting into a role, and everybody must be thinking that, there's a new kid and what he's going to do. And so there's a lot of expectations. And also, people were thinking that whether this guy would be able to do that role. But why I said product management is very important is because, every product manager is at a core of a business. They are in touch with all parts of the supply chain or the ecosystem, and they really help in ensuring that the business flows extremely well. And they are the ones who set up in delivering effective, good P&Ls for each company. So I was very fortunate, and being there in that function. If there are some questions later on, maybe I can explain why a product manager is a very important function for everybody to spend some time of their career in.
Fantastic. No, thanks. That's a great answer. And I kind of suspected, Jitu, that probably product management was your closest to your heart kind of a function, because I remember you do, and you were one of the best. I mean, if not the best among all the product managers in Philips during my tenure. I remember. So we will have more questions on product management. But moving on. So consumer durables and fast moving electrical goods, or FMEG as they call it, this is an industry that has totally undergone a metamorphosis in the past 25 years, Jitu, and you know it much better than all of us. And from the good old GLS bulb and tube light days, where I started out in lighting, to the entire drive around energy saving and compact fluorescent lamp CFLs in the late 90s, early 2000s, eventually LEDs in the late 2000s, and smart lighting. Then, of course, this entire spectrum of electrical goods like fans or switches or water heaters, etc. Not just the product lines have completely changed, but also the associated go-to-market models that have been flipped on their heads in the past 15-20 years. And this is no longer a vertical driven business that I grew up in, at least when I was in the industry, but it has become more of an integrated approach in terms of how people go to market. And then, of course, first with the internet and then social media, and now with AI playing disruptor, marketing itself, the marketing function today is nothing like what it looked like in the late 90s when you were a product manager, for example, with indoor luminaires in Philips. So if I may ask you, Jitu, what are the most significant changes in the industry that you've observed as an industry leader in the past 2 decades? And this is a two-part question. The second part is, where do you see the industry headed during the next 1 decade?
Again, a very good question. And if I have to reflect, let's say in the last 3 decades, if I look at, we are in the energy business, right? So there is energy production, there is energy transportation, and then there is energy consumption. Where my experience has been a lot is in energy consumption, the appliances which is there in the consumption area. Yeah. If I have to look back 3 decades back, a lot was on utility. If you take a very big macro view, the utility of a product was the most important. That was a driving parameter. So होना चाहिए, availability was the very big part. हमें जब चाहिए तो माल हमें material मिलना चाहिए. And technology may not be as advanced, but at least it's available. So that was the one which was driving from the customer or the consumer point, where the product or the categories were three decades back. So अगर लाइट है तो लाइट देना चाहिए, पंखा है तो हवा देना चाहिए, स्विच है तो ऑन ऑफ होना चाहिए, वाटर हीटर है तो गर्म करना चाहिए. That's all. Those were the key things. And number of products per category in a home or a household were not as many as well. People were So if there is a toilet, there was one toilet as an example, right? And there are rooms, there are two rooms. So one of the rooms are, there is a room and the living area is common. So that's how homes were as well 3 decades back. So that was then. But if you look at things now, what we see now is the consumers have become very aspirational. They like to have nice homes. They like pretty homes. So essentially, the utility is like a hygiene. So it's वो तो डिलीवर करना ही है, हवा तो डिलीवर करेगा ही पंखा, लाइट तो
Correct.
प्रोडक्ट देगा ही, पर दिखने में कैसा है, व्हाट डज इट डू टू माय एम्बियंस. मेरा एक प्रोडक्ट का, मेरे घर का एक मेरी पर्सनालिटी है, वो पर्सनालिटी जो है उसी हिसाब से मेरा घर भी वैसा है. दैट्स हाउ basis my personality I go and pick up products. So that's how my home is. So the good looking products have become extremely important. Aspirational household consumer is looking for good looking products. The other thing is, of course, quality is extremely important. They really like the product. What is promised is being delivered. So consumers really look at that. So that's again another thing which is become extremely important now. The third more important thing is sustainability, the energy efficiency. In India, in fact, the government of India has played a very important role. And of course, the players are also playing that role. Bureau of Energy Efficiency had come in, and they have pot and star labeling programs in lighting. They have in water heaters. They have in fans. So many more categories. You have a very easy way for the consumer to choose which product is more efficient. So energy efficiency is becoming a very, very important parameter as well. So people like to buy products which are good looking, which have very good quality. They offer good energy efficiency. At the same time, increasingly, what we see is people are also looking at ease of use as well. So that's again another trend which is catching up. So on your second question, where do I think that how is it going to be in the next decade, or let's say next 10 years? I think it's going to transition. The technology may keep on changing, but the core part, because the consumer is really has caught on these essential core parts. भाई और अच्छा लगना चाहिए, मैं जैसा जैसा मेरा घर ट्रांसफॉर्म हो रहा है, वैसा वैसा प्रोडक्ट जो है should also come and fit in my good looking home, because people will have much more nicer homes. Quality again will become more and more hygiene, so that will always going to be there. Energy efficient bill zero hone chahiye. That is how people are going to be say. People will look at energy efficiencies will continue to play a very important role. Ease of use may we have to really see how things will transition, because the concept of smart, which is a big talk in professional applications, one has to also see how it goes in the consumer applications as well. So that is one thing which is still has to be watched out, and that's where uh, players have a big role to play. Because one of the things I continue to discuss with my team, smart banana to bahut aasan hai. The technology is available. You can make smart products, but you need to make things smart, which makes life of consumers more easier. It becomes easier for them. uh, it is, you don't make things smart to change their habits. One of the things is, if you are brushing with the right hand, tomorrow you just try brushing with the left hand, you'll be not be able to do it. So you bring in technology and try to change a consumer's habit, it is not going to happen. So you have to bring in something which falls in the consumer's habit and makes it much easier in that process. So uske baad version 1, version 2. So this is one area where the smart thing, which a lot of things is being talked about. I think you have to see how it goes, in the next 10 years. That's one interesting area to watch out.
Very well said. I think, you made three very important points, and my takeaways from this, Jitu. First thing is, which you said, is that home decor or stuff that people buy is now a reflection of their personalities, not just their utility needs. So they want to something to match their personalities. And secondly, the aspirational part of the Indian buyer, like 2 decades back, it was probably not that visible, but today people are willing to take bets, put bets on new things. And I as as a matter of habit, I whenever I am traveling to any city in India, if I get time, I just go and visit the retail markets. Like in Calcutta, I go to Ezra Street or Pollock Street, etc. I go and sit in Paresh Bhai's shop, for example, and I watch what's going on there. So I can see the people coming in. 20 साल पहले क्या होता था ना, people would come in and say मुझे Philips का CFL चाहिए या मुझे Osram का वो चाहिए. Now people come and say मुझे ये product चाहिए, कौन कौन सा आपके पास अवेलेबल आप दिखाओ, and then they select it. So that is coming out very clearly what you said. And the third thing is very, very important, which you said, that your product should not try to change people's habits, but it should align themselves to the habits and then make it easier for them. Because and I love the example of the right hand, left hand brushing. So I'm going to use it somewhere, definitely. Thanks for that, Jill. So, moving on, now, so let me talk about your current assignment. So, you are currently leading the two core P&Ls of an iconic Indian organization like Surya Roshni. And my mentor, and he's an icon in the industry, the late Mr. Rajiv Karwal, had once told me that, Ayon, if there is one company that could have taken out Philips's market share and unseated it at Philips's prime, it was Surya. And I know this is true because I had also worked for GE Lighting after leaving Philips, and GE being GE at that time, the mightiest organization in the world. But despite pulling in all the GE might into the mix, we barely could make a dent in the market like what Surya Roshni did. So, being a long timer and an across the spectrum Philips leader, what are some of the learnings that you have had at Surya? And if you could share some tips on how Indian companies like Surya Roshni stay so competitive and so profitable at the same time?
Okay, so this is again a good question. Look, Surya Roshni has a long heritage, like you already mentioned. The company started in 1973, and the founder of the company is was also one of the co-founders of Jindal Brothers. So they have had that lineage as well. So it's a very strong lineage. It comes in from very strong lineage, and it started in steel pipes, and then 1983 they were into lighting. Steel में जैसे risk लेना पड़ता है, you will make large investments. So that appetite the founders already had. So I think coming in the lighting business, they already saw that who's the best guy in the business in the country. And you got to be somebody like the best guy. So at that point of time, Philips was the leader. So Surya Roshni, it's a very professionally organized company. It's very professionally organized. What I see is the teams are very much, they are empowered, but there is also an effective governance as well, which also does check things are in the right direction. So it's a very, very nice way of doing things in the way the company is organized. So just to go back when the owners the founders really came into lighting, and then they made large bets into putting in the right supply chain. So which is putting in manufacturing, building manufacturing excellence. Because eventually, if you have to go to the market, first of all, you really need the right product with damn good quality and the right price. So the first part of the thing you have to fix is, the product. So and it was in that era where if you're not having the manufacturing excellence, you can't be competitive and you can't offer good, consistent quality out in the market. So they did that. And in addition to that, in addition to this, they also invested extensively in go-to-market. So if I have to really jump, so many years, let's say 30 years, if I have to jump and come now, Surya Roshni has the lighting part itself has two large factories. These are दो 50 एकड़ के बड़े factories हैं, and there are in my team there are 700 sales guys, and there are 1,500 outsourced sales guys as well, who are, so outsourced means the distributor salesperson. So they are also partly incentivized. So that's a sales force which is running every week to 300,000 electrical outlets across the country. So that's the, it's a massive way of being there in the electrical space. I think Surya Roshni is one of the most well organized in the lighting space, both from a manufacturing point of view and also from the distribution point of view. Again, just look back 10 years back when there was a huge shift in technology. Lighting was more conventional. We discussed bulbs, GLS, CFL, TL, all that stuff we discussed. अब तो वहां से वो पूरा एलिडिफिकेशन हुआ. It's like these are two very different technology. They are not in the adjacent space.
Correct.
A lot
Of
of
course.
players in the lighting area, not only in India, globally, who were there in the conventional lighting area, they did not invest in LED manufacturing, in LED supply chain excellence. So look, if you're buying from contract manufacturers, your vision is only limited to so much, right?
Sure.
But Surya took the risk. Surya took the risk, and it went for complete in-house manufacturing of LED products. So it had full supply chain view. So which gave a more control on on the technology. So the company learned on the technology extremely well. And since it had a view of the entire value chain, it also meant that the company has learned to build and provide to the market effective quality, the best quality at the most affordable price. So I think in a nutshell, just to come back, the company has very well organized, empowered teams, effective governance, very strong manufacturing excellence, and equally strong go-to-market excellence. So that's where the company has built itself. One of my big learnings has been because most of my life has been spent in multinational companies. Though Philips was like an Indian company, it started in 1930 in this country, so it was more like an Indian company. But still, we could see a lot of shades of the multinational way of working. Indian companies mein kya hai, if you are able to align, right? It's all about alignment. If the alignment is good, the speed of execution is very fast. It could be like 3x, 4x, 5x as well. I also spent 1 year in Kurlon, which was led by Mr. Sudhakar Pai in Bangalore, leading that company in 2014. For a year, I was there for a year. I also saw the similarly. I saw it that there is good alignment. The execution speed is very high. The other good thing is that the accessibility to the end most decision maker is very high. In a multinational, your accessibility to the end most could be, sometimes it's there, sometimes it may not be there. So I think those are the two real things which I see. Otherwise, very similar. I think the Indian companies and the multinational companies, they all run for the same P&L, for customer satisfaction, playing for different stakeholders in the ecosystem, and being happy and for happy customers. So I think it's about the same.
Fantastic. No, I think, I also read up, I would read up about Surya Roshni during my lighting days. And I can totally connect with all the 3 points that you mentioned. The first is that manufacturing, having a robust manufacturing base, then converting it into the right supply chain to go to market. And then, of course, the massive sales force that you mentioned. I mean, that's huge. I mean, I didn't have an idea that Surya Roshni has got such a huge sales force. I mean, because channel is probably the life and blood of this business. And like in Philips, we used to say that the only reason Philips survived 75, 80 years in the market with double-digit growth was because of the channel. Because the channel partners of Philips, they may love them or hate them, but they would stick around with Philips, most of them. And that channel was responsible for the organization's longevity in the market. That's very important. And second thing you made was another point you made was very critical. And I come upon this discussion often, and I have written about it sometimes in my books or articles about the Indian company model. People have got a very jaded view about how Indian companies work and from outside. But whenever you talk to people who are working successfully in a successful Indian company, they say exactly what you said, that there's very less bureaucracy, there is very high speed of execution, you got reach to the end decision maker, and once you have an alignment, things get done immediately. And I think Indian companies also have a risk appetite. which is, when they see that they are on a successful streak, they have a risk appetite to grow pretty fast, scale pretty fast, unlike multinationals where there are so many checks and controls and processes and people changing and management decisions being changed, and so nothing actually gets done. Maybe 20% gets done. So I think Indian companies have a far better. And and lastly, I have, and I'm sure it's with Surya also, the Indian companies I have observed, Jitu, and learned from, is that they have a very strong focus on cash flow. So I think cash flow, they don't bother much about top line. I mean, they're not, top line is fine, but they are also very, very conscious about cash flow, how much cash they are carrying at any point in time. So I have, very rarely we see Indian companies land up in trouble like many Western companies do. So I think that would be there again. So great learnings, and thanks for sharing them, Jitu. So I
So
think
just to add,
I'll
just to add,
sure.
and just to add, I think Indian companies are, they're very smart in terms of understanding what needs to be delivered for different stakeholders, and shareholders are a very important part of that process. So promoters
Yes.
are normally the bulk of the shareholding. That's where it is.
Yeah.
But then there are, if it's a listed company, you will have FIIs, DIIs, and the retail investors as well. So they know exactly what has to be delivered. People need, people need consistent delivery on performance. So it's on how smartly. So of course there is a top line growth, there is a profit growth, there is a extremely prudent use of capital. How the capital is being deployed, what part of capital is being deployed in capex, and if it is not being deployed in productive assets, then why not return it back to the shareholders? And also look at your operating cost as well. Eventually, you will need to look at each of your OPEX or operating expenses and put it in areas which will bring higher returns. So eventually, how you manage, like you said, cash is extremely important. So where you put the money, कैपेक्स में भी कहाँ पैसा डालना है जो ज्यादा रिटर्न लेके आएगा, और सिमिलरली एक्सपेंस कहाँ करना है जो consistent sustainable results लेके आए. So I think they are very good at it, and the decision making, as we discussed, pretty smart and quick.
Absolutely. And I think, I knowing you and personality like yours, and you will be a very good fit there, because I remember you used to always have the same style when you were working, even in Philips. I mean, so I will move on to your personal leadership style here, and I'll embarrass you a little bit if you are okay with that. So I'll share. I can't help sharing this Jitu anecdote of mine. This is from 1999. I was this new sales engineer in Orissa. I was the state, and this is for my viewers. Jitu probably remembers the story. So I was a new sales engineer for the state of Orissa. There was this major tender with State Bank of India. So it was like for 600 units of light luminaires, and which was a big deal those days. Mirror optics luminaires, we used to call them, and it was huge for me. It was my biggest tender that far in my career. So I had prepared it painstakingly, and Jitu had been kind enough. He was the product line manager, and he had come down to Bhubaneswar to attend the tender opening with me. Now, once we were in the tender opening and we saw the price, and he saw immediately that I have made a big goof up while preparing the quotation. So what I had done was I had forgotten to include the excise duty of 12% on my cost, and I had quoted the price without that. So conventionally, any other product line manager would have immediately walked out of the tender and kind of cornered me and said that you have goofed up and how dare you, blah blah blah. But instead of that, he sat in the room and he helped me win the tender, and he probably had to negotiate with the vendor afterwards. I don't know, but that was what impressed me, Jitu, at that time. Even you were a very young leader at that time, but what was impressive was you had that the buck stops at me kind of an attitude, even at such an early age. And during the past 25 years that I've observed you across your assignments, I always found you that you actually commanded more respect from your teams rather than demanding it. So I'm yet to come across, people from our industry and in our known circuit who don't have a similar Jitu story to share. So tell us about your top leadership essentials and that you live by, and which have become default now for you, and regardless of where you work for, whether it's Surya, whether it's Schneider, Philips, whatever.
Well, those are many kind words, and I also remember you mentioned Jituda, ये मैं कहीं और cover कर दूंगा, and you did that. So you it was you who ensured that whatever went by also came back in future orders, because eventually product manager क्या role रहता है, customer level पे या market level पे या तो product level पे profit deliver करना. So that's of course revenue growth वगैरह रहेगा. So मेरा customer level and geography level पे वो आपने deliver किया. So आप ही ने किया था. So I was like, I just came along and so to come back to your specific question, I think being in leadership, I've had the chance of working with many good leaders. My earlier most leader was, some of the names I will mention because a lot of my learning has come through them. D Das, Devarato Das, he just retired from Philips in Singapore.
Yeah, I saw.
He
I
was my
saw
first
you.
boss.
Was
The
boss. I
first
saw your
boss.
comment.
The first boss. Then I remember him. Then Sairam Shekhar. He was my boss in my consumer business. I remember I also I was never I never had the direct interaction with direct reporting to Venkatramani, but he was again one leader who inspired me a lot. Then Rajiv Chopra. I worked in Kurlon. The promoter and the founder there, Mr. Sudhakar Pai. In my previous company at Luminous, Mr. Vipul Sabharwal, amazing leader. Vipul is one of the leaders I learned the most. And then, of course, the leadership I work with in my current company. So, some of the things which I see, which I have seen across, and it's not only in my different roles. I think one of the important thing when you are looking at your team, if you're running large P&Ls or maybe small P&Ls, eventually there is a large team. The team could be in 50s or hundreds or could be thousands, right? So extremely important to have a alignment in your head. कि भाई, what is the direction of the company? Direction क्या है? Clarity होना बहुत जरूरी है. And you need to have very strong conviction on that direction and have very good reasons. So that's one thing which I find, in my own evolution, I find that that's very, very important. So once you have that, I think the second most important thing is how you communicate. In not so many words, but in very simple way, you are able to communicate and let people know what you're trying to communicate. The other part of communication is also listening. The people who come to you, you meet people at their places or at the production floor, or you're there with your customers or the sales force, or in different meetings. You are the guy who's not talking. A lot of times I've seen that people like to talk a lot. So the other thing which I'm still learning. It's one skill I really need to work more on. But I think wherever I have listened more patiently, it has left a lot of things inside me, and it really helps me to analyze and take next steps. So other thing which I would like to mention is empower. You have to really find out in different functions, be young or a senior leader, how you are able to empower them. Don't interfere. A lot of times I see that leaders जो हैं impatient होते हैं. So observe करो. Don't interfere. Let them do their job. So ये तीन चीज जो है मेरे को ऐसा लगता है कि बहुत important है. And then of course there is a lot of other thing, the people thing, which always we will discuss. If you are able to build a more appreciative culture, a lot of times you will see what teams have not done. But why not you look at things which they have done? So I think these 3-4 things, if I can try and put it in one box, if you are able to do these things, I'm sure people will benefit, you will benefit, and the company will benefit. Eventually, people matter most. Businesses जो हैं people बनाते हैं, लोग बनाते हैं. You can't do everything all. That is in a nutshell, which I think I could share in this forum.
No, great. And I think, Like you said, all the three things matter: clarity, communication, listening, especially listening, and then empowering people. So all three things matter, and they kind of
appreciative culture
appreciate,
also. Yeah.
be appreciative. Absolutely, I totally agree. And yeah, of course. And I think people skills and task sales, so leaders are either of the two slots. And just a quick supplementary short question: so some people start with the people and end with the task being done, and some people start with the task in mind and get to the people. So which kind of leader are you?
ये एक और अलग तरीके से पूछ सकते हैं. Sorry, sometimes I'm using Hindi thing. I hope
No
that's okay.
problems. That's the best way to do it.
So it's a it's a thing between being a micromanager and a macro manager, micro and macro. So I think you really need to have both skills. So how you are there at a big level, a big picture है, तो कुछ जरूरत पड़े तो नीचे भी आके देखो, बोलो मत लेकिन देखो, साथ में रहो, right?
Sure, sure.
और फिर ऊपर चले जाओ. So zooming in, zooming out is extremely important, and I think you need both skills.
So I will move to a little bit of a domain question now, because I want to talk about product positioning and profitability, because we all know that you have always been a master at this. Now, if you were to give advice to an aspiring product manager on how to create a product, launch it in the right segment, take it to the market, and have a sustainable and a profitable life cycle for it, what will be some of the basic rules that they should keep in mind?
So one of the things I would say that if you have a career, if you can spend time in being a product manager, I think it's a great area to be in, to really learn all parts of the business. Business to है, but business is all about माल बनाना, माल बेचना. it's
बिल्कुल.
it's these are the two very important things, and both the things are extremely important. So of course, there are more nuances in माल बनाना, and similarly there are more nuances in माल बेचना. All that nuances really comes in with the product guy. भाई क्या बनाना है, कैसे बनाना है, किस प्राइस पे बनाना है, क्या क्वालिटी बनाना है, राइट, किसको बेचना है, किधर बेचना है, कितना पैसा बनाना है. And then the loop also comes in. So product manager is a very, very important role in my head. Some of the things I would always encourage, because most of the time when young people will land up in a product role, it's important that पहला analyze करना बहुत जरूरी है. You really need to analyze. You need to segment information which is available, on product. On product को बहुत तरीके से आप segment कर सकते हो. Portfolio segmentation जो है, फिर कस्टमर सेगमेंटेशन है, ज्योग्राफी सेगमेंटेशन है, कंपटीशन सेगमेंटेशन है, ट्रेंड्स का सेगमेंटेशन है. अगर आप लीडर हो तो थोड़ा ग्लोब भी देखो, वर्ल्ड में जो ट्रेंड्स उसको भी देखो, उसको सेगमेंट करो. ऑल ऑफ दैट, इफ यू डू वेरी गुड सेगमेंटेशन, आई थिंक इट विल ऑल will give you, there are patterns which will come out and will bring a lot of opportunities in front of you. And when you look at so many opportunities, you have to also calibrate by इस opportunity में क्या निकलेगा, क्या resources लगेंगे. So resources again are very important. You really cannot just think of कि ये कर लेते हैं, but resources का क्या है? What amount of capital expenditure is required? How much money is required? People, how many people are required? So what are the other operating expenses are going to be launch करने में time kya lagega. So resources are also important. So basis which I think you should be able to really filter in and narrow down to an opportunity which is the most productive, and make a you can make a priority listing 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go for it. Then you really go at the customer side then. Because that is where, once you have understood the opportunity, go to the consumer or the customer and really try and find out what are the needs, where if you are able to build products, it offers differentiation and also makes money for the company, right? Point क्या है कि अगर आप need लेते हो, अगर वो need important enough नहीं है, so don't play there. So you have to really see what are the priority needs, and then whether you can differentiate as well, and then make them. You have to also manufacture, you have to design, manufacture products, and at the same time also see on the availability part as well. How will you fix availability? Those products may be online specific. Those products could be key retail specific. Those products could be key customers. So availability is also, the customer part also has to be parallelly worked on, and then go and launch. Look at the consumer's buying journey and then try and see that how you can seed an information, communicate it, and then try and see that, that's how the launch process also goes in. So I think it's a product marketing is companies which have very good product marketing culture. I think they end up doing extremely well. All functions are important with respect to all functions, but not important function in my head.
Yeah, and like you said, I really love the way you said कि धंधा दो ही comprises of two things, बनाना क्या है और बेचना कैसे है. Okay, and then everything else is nuances within those two buckets. And you've kind of been on both sides of the spectrum. आपने बनाया भी है और बेचा भी है. So that's why probably end to end P&L समझना, and that's I also always keep saying that धंधा देसी तरीके से ही होता है. You have to understand that ultimately have to make something, sell it profitably. It should fill a customer's need, and everybody should be happy about it. And there are some superstar products that people, good product managers create. I still remember some of your products. After that you might have created many more, but मुझे अभी भी याद है आपने एक FBS 300 करके एक luminaire बनाया था, square luminaire था, and that was such a super hit in the market, in the office segment especially, and it sold like hotcakes. I remember that product especially, so I wanted to just mention that to you. And now just a second part of the same question, consumer durables and FMEG, these thrive a lot, and this is kind of a takeoff from the previous question. They thrive a lot on brand recall and loyalty. And given that the channel also plays a major role in giving visibility and market share, shelf space and market share to a brand, I'm sure that someone like you in your long career have had to tweak your playbook many a times to crack brand recall in each of your assignments. And channel loyalty would also have been different in each of your assignments. So could you share some challenges that you faced and how did you overcome them?
So ये थोड़ा लंबा क्वेश्चन है. It's a pretty long question. Brand is brand is all about it's a personality of the company, right? Company, it's an image, it's an imaginary the consumer has about the company or the product the consumer is going to use for that specific brand. So I think it is all about understanding where you are in the consumer's mind currently. So you should do one research and find out, and maybe you should do research consistently to find out where you are. And once you know where you are, and if you see that that is an area where the opportunity continues and is going to be there in the near future, it is good to be invested in that area. If it is not, then you have to really find out what are the adjacent things you have to do. So let me assume, that it's a first case where you need to be there in that area. So once it's done, the most important thing is that all your product guys, right? They really need to see that the products are delivering in that direction. So consumer के दिमाग में जो brand का image है, so what is that product delivering? So is it delivering in that direction? Let's say not 100 of the products, but out of 100, 20, 30 or more aspirational products, or maybe more products where you would be using them to market. So 20, 30, 40% of the product needs to deliver in that direction. So that's the second part which has to be done. If it is not there, then you have to tune. Well, it is only then that part can be magnified, right? And once this part is being fixed, then you look at how you want to communicate. Now, if the brand recall has to be really done extensively, you really need to make above the line communication plans, which is, again, going through the process of consumers' buying journey and try and seed it. When the consumer is going to think about that product, you're going to be putting your messaging around. And similarly, when you're going at point of sale, how you ensure that at point of sale, your visibility is there so that the consumer is able to connect it immediately when the consumer enters the point of sale. So in a nutshell, I just wanted to mention that it is all about walking the talk. आप communicate कुछ और कर रहे हो और चल कुछ और रहे हो, तो वो sustain नहीं करता.
Authenticity.
And consumer is not a bearproof, right? Consumer is the most, intelligent human being. बहुत ही intelligent. So आपको अपना जगह बनाओ. You need to know where you have to be, and then ensure you deliver in that direction, and then you communicate in that direction. Communication जो है उसकी buying journey को follow करना चाहिए, right? So That is one part of your question. The other part of your question is on channel loyalty. Channel loyalty is channel is again चैनल में दो चैनल आता है, प्राइमरी चैनल, सेकेंडरी चैनल. सो दोनों
Yeah.
दोनों जो है आपके ही चैनल. सो वन ऑफ द I think there are two, three things which are important when you are talking about channel loyalty. One is about your commercial relationship with the channel partner. How transparent it is. And it should be extremely transparent. What you say, you deliver. आप कुछ और बोलो और कुछ और करो, वो नहीं चलेगा. बोलो और वो करो. Don't show the moon and then, 2 फुट भी ऊपर नहीं जाए. ठीक है, you show the moon and then, at least कहीं आसपास तो जाए. So, be very transparent. Transparency is extremely important. The second is transparency में including, sometimes we also say that हम आपके साथ ये नहीं करेंगे, हम ये एरिया जो है आपका काटेंगे, या फिर ये प्रोडक्ट्स हम आपको नहीं देंगे. Tell them transparently, but tell them in a nice way, in a good way. Relationship is the second part. So how it's an equal relationship. If you look at the product price, if I'll tell you a small example, if a product is costing 100, the MRP is 300 approximately, right? So you may take 140 of the product, right? 130 of the product, 130, 140, 145 रुपये of the product. 15-20 रुपए जो है टैक्स वाले ले जाते हैं. The remaining 140 is with the channel. So so they are your equal partners. Only thing is they are too many in number, but they are your equal partners. Treat them with respect. So I think if you are able to do this on a consistent basis, I think loyalty will come on both sides. Because eventually, you have to grow. If you are growing, they are growing, and it's transparent, and we are nice to each other. It continues. The relationship will be there for a long, long period.
Very well said. I think in the first part of the answer, I really loved the way you narrated it in terms of how a brand self-perception is and how to align your go-to-market with that perception, and to always keep course correcting whenever you are staying off the course and you are not delivering on your brand promise. And the second part of the answer which you gave and which really stayed with me, Jitu, was the say-do ratio with your channel. And I have seen many large organizations flounder because of this, because they end up with a lot of promise. This begin with a lot of promises, and they end up creating an angst within the channel partners, because the channel partners feel cheated, that they promised something else and they turned out to be something else, and then there are claims and dues and all whatnot. So I think I think that transparency, and I think Indian channel partners especially, they value transparency a lot. आपने जो कहा ना कि उनको मना भी कर दो, अगर मुंह पे मना कर दो कि आपके लिए नहीं है, बट अच्छी तरह से आप बताओगे, तो people respect that. I have seen a lot of channel partners who respect that. So great answer, Jitu. So now, I think we are almost up. I want to ask you one last question. This is going to be a fun question, So before we open the floor for audience, there are a lot of audience questions. I was just speaking into them. So our Philips days, Jitu, and we've spent a lot of time only in Philips. I have not worked with you in other companies. They are full of anecdotes and hundreds of nuggets, right? Funny, quirky, enlightening, sometimes even serious stories, So I have hundreds of those stories, in my mind, and I use them often in my blogs and writing. But and they have. I wanted to share with the viewers one of my favorite funny stories. So it's about one of our colleagues. You may remember him. He was Rajendra Singh Bhatia. Do you remember Rajendra Bhatia? So he was an area manager in Northern India. So for the viewers, so R.S. Bhatia is at the point of sale, trying to sell a few high bay luminaires to a renowned cycle manufacturer in Ludhiana, I think. And high bay luminaires are those bell-shaped fittings which are hung from the top ceilings of the factories to light up the factories. So now this Sikh gentleman asks Bhatia that मेरे साइकिल में 1000 पार्ट्स होते हैं और मैं उसको 3000 रुपए में बेचता हूँ, तो तेरे हाईवे लुमिनियर में सिर्फ 4 पार्ट है और तू 4000 रुपए में बेच रहा है, मेरे को इसका मैथ समझा. So and Bhatia, he was a very street smart sales guy, like I said. So Bhatia, without batting an eyelid, he said, "Sir, मैं मैथ्स में बहुत कमजोर हूँ, लेकिन आप एक बात बताओ, आप अपनी फैक्ट्री को अपना साइकिल वहां से लटका के आप जला सकते हो क्या? जैसे लाइटिंग कर सकते हो फैक्ट्री का साइकिल। तो ना द वो साइकिल मैन्युफैक्चरर ही अंडरस्टूड द ह्यूमर एंड ही बर्स्ट आउट लाफिंग एंड ही गिव द ऑर्डर। सो इस तरह की ना हमारे फिलिप्स डेज में देयर आर सो मेनी एनेक्डोट्स, you know, which are like they're part of our folklore that give us a shared belonging to the organization. It's like, you know, it's like a childhood that you inhabited together and you grew up together. So my last question, Jitu, can you share one striking anecdote from your Philips years that has stayed with you and you often remember it?
तो मैं
Excuse me.
I will share some anecdotes, one or two anecdotes, which is a little connected only to me, but it is also it gives you a picture that learning is always a process. So मैं मेरे ख्याल से I joined in Calcutta, and in 3 months I was posted in Bombay. And D Das, Devabrato Das, he asked me to write a letter to one of the customers, and I typed the letter. और उसके बाद मैं उनके पास लेके गया. उन्होंने आई थिंक मेरी तरफ देखा भी नहीं और कागज को फाड़ करके डस्टबिन में फेंक दिया और हाथ दिखाया, जाओ यहाँ से. So that was my first so, and he didn't explain कि क्या problem है मेरे लेटर में. So that evening, I spent, I knew who are the good sales guys in the company. So that time, every sales guy used to have a communication file where they will file up all their, you know. So I went through a lot of letters that day. So I spent like 3, 4, 5 hours the late evening, went through many of those letters, and then next day I made a letter and I gave it to him, and he was very happy. Good. So yeah, that's how, our the learning processes, I just to share, this is one of the anecdotes which I remember in our growing up years, how the learning used to happen. And I'm sure you would have had similar examples. The other example, when I was a B2C manager for North in at Philips, Sairam Shekhar, he's a damn good learned guy, but sometimes he is also known to be a terror as well, so he's a very tough guy.
Yeah, I know.
He's a tough
I
manager.
know.
So he used to come to my office because HOB दिल्ली में था, गुड़गांव में, और हमारा ऑफिस दिल्ली में था. अभी लास्ट डे में अगर ट्रैवल करना है तो किधर जाना है भाई, रीजन चलो. So he will come in the last 2 sales closing days, either closing day में या उसके एक पहले वाले दिन में. He will come and sit for 4 or 5 hours.
और आपके रूम
And
में सामने बैठ जाएंगे, आपके रूम में आपके सामने वाले चेयर पे बैठ जाएंगे.
हाँ, मेरे रूम में मेरे साथ
हाँ,
वो बैठे बैठे हैं, और वो पूरा रिव्यू, पूरा स्टेट को पूरा जो लेफ्ट राइट वो पूरा रिव्यू कर रहे हैं. So that's the other anecdote. So one of the things which I learned from him is, as managers, it is not about chasing results. It's all about doing things which will bring results tomorrow. And then of course there are team है जो, so analyze करना, information को देखना कहाँ पर हमको अपना prioritize करना, resources कहाँ डालना है. So of course, it was at that point of time I used to think, why is he coming to me on the last day? But I'm sure again has been a good learning to me. Of course, बाकी बहुत सारे anecdotes हैं, मैं इस forum पे नहीं share करना चाहता हूँ.
of course.
I'm sure you understand that.
I will just read out the questions and comments and questions I'll read out. Siddhi is saying hi, hello Siddhi. Juhi is saying hello Juhi. Juhi is saying it's great to engage with a leader like you, Jitu sir. And Arnav is saying, how do you identify and adapt to shifting consumer trends in the FMCD and FMEG sectors, especially in the context of India's diverse markets?
Yeah, so I think consumers trend. So if I recollect on the question, you were asking me that how do you keep changing basis shifting consumer choices, trends, and I think that was the question, right?
Yeah, in the diverse India markets. Yeah.
Yeah. So India is of course diverse. India is very large people staying in large cities, people staying in small towns. So that is where segmentation is extremely important. So segmentation is about, it is not about people staying in So just to tell you, a consumer in a Delhi or a consumer in Chennai, they're not very different. Their choices could be different in terms of how they look at things. For example, like what I mentioned, there are consumers who like traditional homes. They would like their decor to be more traditional, which is more something which was like 100 200 years back, very traditional homes. Some people like very modern homes, right?
Yes.
Some people like eclectic homes. Some people like more so consumers. So like in Delhi, in Chennai also, people will have similar set of choices, right? So it is not basis geography, the consumers are changing. So similarly in smaller towns as well. So I think the trends could be changing in those areas. Yesterday, there could be many consumers who were making traditional homes. Today, there would be many consumers who are making modern homes. So that's a change which could be happening. So when you are able to look at those trends, that is easily spottable. If you are able to do research in a frequent way, once in a year, you would be able to observe to where are the trends going. Also looking at the adjacent spaces, looking at what the paint industry is doing, what the furnishing industry is doing. I'm talking about a about products which are going into homes. You would be able to make out that where the trends are, and basis which you have to adapt, your products as well. So that's how you make those choices then.
Very true. Very true. And I think, Jenny Matthews' next question is kind of similar. Your answer runs into this. So Jenny is asking, what role does technology play in development of new products at Surya Roshni? I think Jitu just mentioned. So you have to understand the market needs and then align yourself to that, depending on what the needs are. So I think Viren Chabra is asking, how do you approach balancing cost effectiveness and quality in product design for a price sensitive market?
Look, I think quality is, this is a very wrong notion a lot of us have. Quality doesn't mean improving quality, doesn't mean more cost. Okay, so there is a specification. A specification is all about, you've decided this is what you want to deliver to the consumer. So there are regulatory norms and there are customer needs. Once you have fixed that, that's a spec, right? Now, if on that spec, the cost comes in. Now, the quality is that you deliver what you have promised, right? So that is what the quality is, and you're able to sustain to it. So the more you improve quality, in my head, the more you improve quality, your cost only comes down. So higher the quality, lower the cost.
And also, higher the quality, probably it also helps you realize a better price, because people also pay for quality. So
Of course, of course. So there is a difference between quality and spec. That's why I called out the spec. You really need to know the
correct, correct,
spec. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And like you said in a previous answer, what are we trying, which market are we trying to serve, and what is the need we are trying to, maybe, sometimes you don't need all the bells and whistles in a product. I mean, you don't need all of that. Maybe the consumer doesn't need it. So that you may need a simple basic product. And sometimes the consumer may need something more, and then you can give more. It's like a version 1, version 2, version 3 of a
Yeah,
product.
so it's a normal way how the portfolio builds up. So you segment your customers, and basis the segmentation you look and try and build the spec for each one of those segments.
Siddhi is asking you, in your opinion, what are the top 3 qualities that make an organization win in today's competitive market?
Okay, that's a tough one. Okay, what are the top three qualities? I think the uh, I think good people. I think the first thing will always be good people. Doesn't mean necessarily that the top pedigrees, right? Good people means what is needed. The skills are important, right? So having the right skills, and it's going to be there always. So people are the most important thing. Having the right people. The second is being always having your ears on the ground, be it the customer, be it your team, be it your team, both sides, the front side and the back side. So always have your ears on the ground. And third is always align with key stakeholders. And here I would like to mention shareholders. Always do that alignment. So I think companies who do these three things uh, on a consistent basis, the chances of them to be successful on a consistent basis goes up.
Very well said. I think. Thanks, Jitu. I think we are up on time, Jitu, and you're getting too many calls. There are many questions. I'll just pick up some ones and I'll read out the rest. Okay. So Aman is asking you, hello, sir. How Aman Bhanusali, how do leaders like you maintain resilience during challenging times?
I think it's a you have to be there in a good headspace, and one of the important thing is like Ayan is a fitness freak, so have a good amount of time for yourself. So whatever you like doing, you like to be fit, you like to cook, you like to read, you like to do music. I like to read. I watch things. I do a lot of running, and I like to spend time with friends and family. So I think these are the things which bring me a lot of good energy. And of course, when I'm meeting and talking to people in my work area, I think that's other source of a lot of energy. So I think when you have good source of energy coming into you, it will reflect in good decision making and being you know able to do your job in a good way.
Thanks, Jitu. And your running shows up. You've lost so much weight, and I can see that. So great. So Meera Chavan is asking, hello, sir. With 30 years in the industry, how have you seen the Indian consumer behavior evolve? I think Meera Jitu answered that in one of his previous earlier answers, that how the consumer has become more aspirational. They want more, and all that stuff. So I think we'll probably let it at that. So, but thanks for the question, pertinent question. Zishan is asking, hello, sir. Evening. What one trend in the Indian businesses in your sector should you focus on to grow over the next 5 to 10 years? Zishan Ali is asking you.
I think, as I mentioned, some of the areas where one should focus on, consumers are increasingly looking for good-looking products. They need nicer homes, so they look good-looking products. They're looking for damn good quality. Third one I mentioned was they're looking for energy efficiency. So how efficient your product is in terms of energy. And the fourth is, of course, ease of use. So I think those are the areas where you need to focus on.
Very well said. I think Aniket and Hiral's questions are more or less similar. Aniket is asking you about disruptions in the industry and about failures, and Hiral is also asking, how do you handle critical failure? How did you handle critical failures in your career? I don't know if you have had any critical failure.
No, I've had a lot of failures. So it's part of a journey, So there have been many failures in my life. Sometimes, performance comes in, sometimes they don't come in. Sometimes, and that's how you evolve, that's how you learn. Sometimes you get a lot of critical feedback because you're not done well. There have been feedback on when I've not talked well to one of my colleagues, so that feedback has come. So I think it's always a learning. It's a journey, So it's all part of the journey. So don't be too upset. I think some of the in my journey, when I look back, I think be more positive. So positive रहो और अपने गोल की तरफ जो है फोकस रहो और थोड़ा एंजॉय करो, फन करो. I think that is what life is all about.
Great. So, and I think Juveria is asking you, any advice you wish you received early in your career that would have made the biggest difference? I think going into product management was a great advice you got, probably. Anything else you want to add to it?
Yeah, I think I've been very happy. So, the chances I've had, and I think you also get chances if you're working with good intent. Please also understand that, right? So one of my takeaways in my life has been that if I have been working with good intent, chances will come your way.
Sure, yeah. Intent matters very much. Very right. Varun Nanda is asking, how do you approach risk management in P&L ownership, particularly in volatile economic climates? I think Jitu mentioned about that, how Indian organizations approach investments and cash flow, etc. So I think that was probably answered by that. And now let's take the last question from Aisha Patel, who is asking you, from your experience, how important is emotional intelligence in corporate leadership, especially in India?
So, you have to be a good guy all the time. Emotional intelligence, in my understanding, is empathy, compassion, ability to listen, patience, ये सारे क्वालिटी तो लीडरशिप के लिए सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट चीजें हैं. You just cannot be trying to show yourself all the time. It's ability to sit back and hear things, observe karo. So I think these are very important. I think it's extremely important.
Perfect. And I think, Aisha, the anecdote I had mentioned about Jitu during my early years, where, he took my goof up in his stride and he helped me through that. That speaks of emotional intelligence with people when you are younger. And even today, 30 years later, he was mentioning about his first boss and a gentleman who fondly still remembers him. So I think all this is emotional intelligence, right? There's nothing more to it's no kind of rocket science. It's just being showing up as human beings. And I think, Jitu, you show up as a human being very well, and that's why people love you so much and respect you so much. And so with this, thanks a lot for taking time out, Jitu. So and we really appreciated all the inputs, and it was a great session. I mean, full of nuggets and information and wisdom. And this platform, Jitu, just for your knowledge, it's a platform called Thinkly. It's one of my friends, Vivek, owns the company, and it's a very selective, non-ad free platform which hosts curated content from some of the leading thinkers in the modern world, including Nobel laureates, etc. And so it's a great place, and these guys are doing a great job in bringing right content out there, because there is so much of content out there, so you can get sometimes overwhelmed and flooded. So this episode will be after the, of course, beyond the live streaming, they will also make a YouTube video and they will circulate it on social media, etc. So, and I'm sure that people who missed the live episode can catch up with your wisdom on the recorded version, Jitu. So thank you very much. Thank you, everyone,
Thank you,
for
Ayan.
joining.
Thank you, Ayan. And I'd like to congratulate the team there. I think they're doing a fantastic work. It's an opportunity for not only the audience, but also people like us to share our own nuggets. And thank you specifically to you, Ayan, that you reached out to me and gave me this opportunity. And it's always good to reflect. And you did a fantastic, you've been a fantastic colleague back then and a good friend now. So we'll catch up soon then. Thank you so much again.
Absolutely. Have a great day, Jitu. Thank you very much. And have a great new year. Thank you.
Right. A new year to you and everybody listening to me now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.